Hi, I'm so glad you decided to join us today. I'm Stephanie J. Marshall from Kickstartology Coaching, and today is the day we begin the work for you to change your life. We're not going to have some long intro here and go on for hours. All I'm going to tell you is make sure that you have something to write on and something to write with, and that you're ready to have your full attention on this. Okay, I want you focused and paying attention just for you. I'm going to share the screen now. Get ready. So here's the thing. When we think of our own lives, we're often thinking about the future that we're going towards, that we're ambling towards as we go along our day to day. But we can actually decide at any point that we want to make a change and totally change the outcome. And here's the thing. What we do on a day-to-day basis over time is going to affect the outcome. Right now you could go along doing what you're doing all the time, kind of straight line, walking human as you see. Or maybe you're going to change your habits in a way that it's going to kind of make you so that you're dancing all the time. As you can see, the person is clearly dancing there. Or maybe you're not going to do anything. But I want you to think about something. I want you to start by thinking about what's probable and what do you assume your life is going to look like in 6 months? And here's the thing. A lot of people just think about what's probable for the way things have always been going. And then there are those optimistic types who are looking at what's possible and they're thinking the best case scenario. And you know what the opposite of pessimist is? If you're listening and you're the opposite of an optimist, I know you're not calling yourself a pessimist. I'm going to put money on you calling yourself a realist. And that's not actually very useful today. Today, I want you to start thinking about what you really want, because that's going to be the starting point. And one of the most important things about coaching is identifying your blind spots. And people don't spend a lot of time fantasizing about what's possible or what they want. It seems a bit whimsical and impractical. But a lot of people aren't actually aware of what's possible for them. So they're not exploring all of the options. We're going to talk about your goals and about your life and what you want for the future. And the first thing I want you to remember is just how huge that possibility is. There is so much that you can do with that time. And what if we were to talk about your goals and about what you want in the long term and think of it like taking a trip? Okay. And I want you to think about your life long term, big picture. You know what, guys? I'm not liking this very much. I'm going to stop this for a sec. Oh, good. There weren't comments. I couldn't see the chat anymore.
No, what did you not like about it? Did it not feel like you?
Hi, I'm so glad you joined us today. My name is Stephanie J. Marshall, and let's get down to it. We're going to give you the tools to change your life. We're not going to have some long-winded intro. We're just going to go there right now. The first thing I want you to do is make sure you've got something to write down on and something to write with, and that you have a really open mind. Oh, I lied. There's 3 things. And that you're paying attention, really focusing, that you don't have the TV on, that you're not scrolling social media at the same time, because that's not going to work. Okay. So the first thing I want you to do is, you're listening to this for a reason. There's some reason you decided to hit play, and that would imply that your life is not completely perfect as it is. So I'm going to ask you to pause me in a second and then set the timer for 5 minutes and write down a list of everything that you want to change in your life, everything that you've had enough, and everything that you no longer want to tolerate. Okay. Have fun with it. It can be big things, little things, everything in between. Pause me for 5 minutes and write that out now. I'm tempted to like sing background music and not have you pause me, but hopefully you've paused me and didn't have to hear any of that. Okay, moving forward, are you ready? Now we're going to talk about the future. That was the indulgent part where we talked about the past, but coaching is forward facing. So let's see, where am I? At the beginning. Go. Okay, 6 months from now. Here's the thing. The actions that you take over the next 168 days is going to determine what your life is like 6 months from now, right? That's 24 weeks, 168 days. If you like math, you can figure out how many hours that is, but it's not relevant to know that this very second. And I know what I'm saying to you seems really obvious, and I know that you know. But as humans, we don't actually think of our lives this way. We forget how much of an impact our choices will make on a day-to-day basis, right? And the other thing is, we tend to assume that the way our life is going to turn out in 6 months is what's probable. Very few people stop and ask themselves the much more interesting question, which is, what's possible, right? That's where the fun stuff happens, with what's possible. And if I'm sounding like some flaky optimist right now, yeah, I'm pretty optimistic, but this isn't about that, because denial does not work. Here's the thing. If you're thinking, yeah, I'm not an optimist, well, I guarantee nobody calls themselves a pessimist, but some people call themselves realists. And that's all fine and good. And we're going to get into why, but that's not necessarily any more practical than being optimistic. So we're going to talk about what's possible. And we're going to get into really looking at that from a fantasizing point of view. It might seem a little bit whimsical, but it's not like sitting back and wishing you could win the lottery. This is more like fantasizing with intent and thinking, well, what if I wanted this kind of life? And so many of us don't give ourselves permission to do that. And we just go along with what's expected of us. And I mean, I've done it many times myself. When I was in corporate, if you had told me the idea of having this business I have now, I would have said to you, yeah, no, that sounds really cool, but yeah, I can't do that. Because I mean, first of all, I've invested so much in this industry doing that. Or people think, well, I can't do that. I have kids and it would be reckless. And trust me, I'm not going to ask anybody to be reckless, but I do want you to connect with what you really want. Okay? Long term. Give yourself permission to do that. Because the basis of a lot of coaching is creating a vision around what's possible. And part of that is like, okay, we're going to be talking about our goals and our vision as though we're taking a trip. And now this is your life we're dealing with. And we're going to decide where to go. The way people set goals now, it's often based on only what they know. And imagine if you were taking a trip, if you were limited to only the places you've already been. Like, is that what you want? That doesn't sound like the most interesting thing. I mean, it might be interesting, but you want to be able to compare it to what's possible to make the right decision. And I'm going to get you to mute me again for 5 minutes. I want you to have a little bit of fun and think about your life in 5 years or 10 years. If you're one of those project management types, or if you're a lawyer and you're going to get stuck in the how, I want you to look far out into the future, minimum of 10 years. The rest of us can look 5 years down the line. Don't get caught up in the how. And what are 5 things that you would love to have going on in your life? And so pause me right now. Have a list. It can be in any area of your life, because we cannot look at our life and our change and long-term in silos. That doesn't actually work, because we live our lives in an integrated way. And one area of your life is going to have repercussions on another area of your life. So right now, pause me, 5 things you would love long term, like 5 years, 10 years in your life. Okay, go. Welcome back. Law number 1 from Kickstartology. And I can't say this often enough. And it seems so simple, yet sometimes I catch myself forgetting it, even though I've been practicing for a while. And it always makes me go, oh, right. This can change your life. And that's spend more time thinking about what you want than what you don't want. And I'm actually going to go back to me in corporate as an example of this as well. And when I was in my last job, that, let's be honest, I wasn't really into it. Probably a little bit of an attitude as well. I spent a lot of time bitching about it to people, to my fellow coworkers, to my friends. And I was really good at identifying everything that wasn't working for me, where it didn't align with my values, where they were making stupid decisions. And oh my goodness, sorry, in hindsight, I'm exhausted by myself. But I wasn't spending any time saying, what do I want for myself? And how am I going to get there? What do I want? I was so stuck in what's probable and maybe finding another job in the industry that also was boring me a little bit. I was so limited that I was spending no time really diving into what I want. That's a big example, but it also works for really tiny things. Like, if my boyfriend's getting on my nerves, and I might think, what do I want? Well, not to be irritated with him, actually. And then I might be able to reframe things. We're not going to get too deep into that right now. And that focusing on what you want, yeah, the thing it does require is you starting to get in touch and giving yourself permission to admit what you do want. And here at Kickstartology Coaching, what we use is a framework called the alignment framework. And it's about moving towards a future that you define with clarity, right? That you figure out. Obviously, you don't go in going, I know exactly what I want. We take you through 12 modules, and some people love certain parts, don't love other parts. It's always different for different people. And the things we do, because we're going to touch on all of these today. Obviously, we're not going to go as deep, but we're going to touch on all of them. We create a vision that you can really connect to, set goals that are aligned with that vision that make sense for right now. Then we work on building the self-image as well as the mindset that's necessary to create those changes, which goes back to what I said a second ago, focusing more on what you want than what you don't want. That's a mindset, and it doesn't happen overnight just because you decide from now on, I will think this way, right? It doesn't work that way. And then we work on that ability to catch yourself and redirect when you're falling into old patterns, old traps, or when you're tired of things and just want to do it the easy way, but that's not the way that's going to actually lead to your life changing. Then we work on embodying the habits and doing the actions that are going to take you to accomplish those goals, to that life that might have seemed like even out of reach not long ago. And can I just say, one of the best part about coaching is people getting results faster than they thought they would and bigger than they thought they would. It's so much fun. And these things have to line up with each other. If you've got a few goals, but they don't line up with each other, then you're not going to build momentum in any direction. So it's about setting a direction and then getting everything in your life to support you so that you're actually making gains and going that way. Which brings me to setting goals. Here's a way I like to think about it. We talk about setting goals as setting the GPS. And this is why it's important. When you've chosen where you want to go with intent, you're setting that GPS. And the opposite of that would be calculating an exact path along a paper map, right? I remember doing that and really enjoying the process, actually, but that's not the point. But the thing about setting the GPS versus drawing the route on a map, is that if you've set the GPS and then something comes up like, oh, I was supposed to go over this bridge, but now it's under constriction and it's closed, the GPS is going to be like, do, 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 finding another route, right? So you're still on the way to accomplish your goal. If you've only got the paper map, which is exactly how you're going to get there, like the detailed plan that you have to follow, you're going to get to that bridge and you're going to be stuck. And I actually have to say, when nobody expected a global pandemic last year, but when that happened, the people doing the alignment framework, I'm not saying it was easy and it was a breeze, but it was about having the tools to say, oh, this happened. I didn't expect it. So now what? They were much better able to pivot and figure out how to keep themselves going towards what they want. It can really help you from getting stuck in the weeds. And I know there might be some people listening who aren't sure what they want next, and that's why they're on the call to begin with. So you might be wondering, what is my goal? And that's why when we're setting that vision and getting clarity there, it's not about, I need my life to look this way exactly, or I will fail and everything will be terrible. It's more about starting to answer the three big questions. That's, who do you want to be? How do you want to live? And what kind of a world do you want to live in? Those are really big questions. And to that end, some of you might be going, I'm just on this call because I want to get myself to work out more. What does that have to do with anything? It has everything to do with it. Because how we do one thing is how we do everything. And once you start answering those questions, not only is it going to help you figure out what you want next, but it's also going to make it easier and easier to build that self-discipline, to follow through for yourself on those little things like working out more consistently, if that's what it is that you want. And if you don't know what you want next in a big way, like setting a goal, that's okay. But what do you know that you do want? What can you do that's going to maybe like create a new habit right now? That's something fun you can go for. Shake it up a little bit, because the more you start making changes in your life to align more with that big picture, what you want, the easier it's going to be to find out what goals you want to set, what you should be setting to create that life you want. And sometimes it's not what you expect it to be. And that's why the open-minded part sounds easy, but it actually takes practice. I just want to flag something right now, one thing at a time. It's so tempting to say, great, I'm going to change all of the things at once. And it's really exciting and it's fun to make plans to do that. I even still catch myself kind of trying to secretly do that myself, but one thing at a time. Okay? In terms of the big goals, you can have some little ones, but one big goal at a time. You'll actually get way more done over the course of a year if you're focusing on one thing at a time. Promise. So, one more time to pause me. I want you to think of what are 10 goals that you could set for yourself. Goals are not habits. Habits are not goals. A habit is something that you do consistently in your life when you're on autopilot, like it's just the way you live. Whereas the goal is something that you're striving for, that once you do it and accomplish it, you're like, yes, I did it. So let's use fitness just as a really clear example. Developing the habit of working out 3 times a week, like working out 3 times a week, that is a habit. It is not a goal, because you're not going to be, like lying on your deathbed going, yay, I worked out 3 times a week my entire life. It doesn't work like that. A goal might be, I worked out X number of times in 2 months. And by the way, that's a little hack sometimes to set a goal to create a habit. And here's the difference. When somebody says to me, my goal is to work out 3 times a week. And I tell them that's not a habit, it's a goal, blah, 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 that whole thing. Here's what happens when they try and do that as the goal. They might say, oh, I had to travel for work this week. Well, in the olden days, they might have said that. So it was hard, so I'll start next week. Or, oh, I was really busy. I had extra stuff come up with the kids. So I couldn't do it this week, but I will next week. It's so much slower. But if they set a goal, if I'm going to work out this many times in this number of days, well, then it's a bit crunch time. And if they're committed to it, they're going to start working around it. Like, well, I know I'm going out of town, but I mean, I still need to keep the number of times I worked out high enough. So they're going to work around it. They're going to figure out how to do it. And by doing that, making that extra effort, it's going to become a habit so much sooner. So that hopefully by the time they've done their goal, they're like, oh yeah, this is who I am. No matter what, I make it happen. Right? Get that difference? Of course you do. So pause me. What are 10 things you could have as a goal? Don't worry, I'm not going to say you have to do all of them, number them. Just pause me and think of what's possible. And here's the thing, a good goal, it's like a good crush, gives you butterflies, feels maybe kind of out of reach, but possible. Okay. Pause me. Welcome back. I don't know why I'm saying that in a really weird way. Just ignore me, humor me, or laugh at me. I don't see you. I don't even know what you're doing that way. Okay. Another rule of Kickstartology, or a law, more of a law. Don't try, decide. Yeah, I'm going to try and do this. People don't do it, right? It's just not how it works. So I want you to look at that list of goals. And I want you right now to choose the one you're going to focus on. I'm not carving it in concrete. You might start going towards it and realize this isn't the one you want first. That's absolutely okay. And just here's something interesting. Sometimes people get caught up on, but which goal should I have? I've got 18 things I could want. How do I start? How do I go forward? There is no perfect answer. There's no wrong answer either. However, not making a decision, that's the wrong answer. And sometimes when you get moving forward, that's how you're going to figure out that it's either the right goal or the wrong goal. So make a decision. Don't worry about it too much, okay? Before we move on, I want you to take a moment. You can pause me again. I promise not to do a weird face when you get back. And I want you to imagine what it would be like to accomplish it. What would your life be like? I want you to try and connect to what it would feel like if you could be like, yes, I did this. Okay, so pause me and do that. How did that feel? Could you feel it? Some people are going to find that really easy and they're going to be like, I imagined it and it was amazing and it felt so good. Other people are kind of half nodding, not like going, yeah, I don't know, maybe a little bit. That also is something that can take some practice. And some people are also like, why are we doing this woo-woo feeling stuff? I just want to get the plan, get the like motivation and do it. And I have an answer for that. The way we learn is not just about ingesting facts and making decisions and going forward like a robot. It would be so easy if we could program ourselves like robots. Also, imagine if we could schedule motivation. Like, how great would that be? And the problem is a lot of people are often really motivated when they're making plans, especially like me. If I'm making plans for really early morning, I'm like, yes, and I'm going to be so motivated to jump out of bed and do all the things. When I wake up at 6 a.m., I don't really want to jump out of bed. It's true. We can't schedule motivation. And because of that, going towards a goal and staying committed to it, it's more than about logic and plans and willpower. And connecting emotionally to the results of what's possible, connecting viscerally, you know, that feeling where you're like, oh, that would feel so good. And wanting it, that's actually a part of learning to change your behavior over time. Okay, so you can't get around it, even for those of you going, sounds really woo-woo or whatever. We're going to get practical. Don't worry. Because what do you have to do to accomplish this goal? No matter how much you sit in the feeling of that would be amazing, I want it, it's so great. And that's an important part. We've got to get beyond that and do stuff. It's not like sitting around wishing, I wish I could get the best job in the world and it'll just come because you've imagined it enough and have enough clarity. No, you're going to have to do stuff. But I want you to stay in that energy. And if you find it difficult, this is a time to practice it. Think of that person who's accomplished it, who's pulled it off. What did she do to get there? And let's say part of it is getting up early in the morning to do that thing. How did she feel getting out of bed? Because I'm guessing it doesn't mean it's going to suddenly be like one day, yay, I'm a morning person, I'm going to sing and get out of bed. No. But what did they work through and do even when they weren't in the mood? What are some steps they took? And I think this is the last time you pause me, but I want you to stop for 5 minutes and brainstorm everything you know that are steps you're going to have to take to achieve this. And if you're stuck right now and you're like, well, I don't know how I'm going to do it, brainstorm, and it might be research ways I could do it, right? I don't know is not an acceptable answer. There are ways. So pause me, do that, brainstorm. What are some habits you're going to have to develop and things you're going to have to do? Okay, are you getting excited now about getting those results? I know I am. I want to bring up some words though, some things that get in the way. This word, balance. Hear it a lot. Work-life balance. Need to find more balance. I'm looking to get balance with my work and my family and my social life and this and that. And I don't like this word at all because it implies there's some perfect answer, some perfect weight, some perfect solution that we're always striving for. And when we don't feel it, we're failing. This is impossible. It's trying to make circumstances align with us, and it won't. Remember how I talked about those big questions? We're going to approach it differently. I'm not going to give away the punchline right away. But in terms of balance, there's something else we like to use. And this also comes up when people talk about boundaries, because very often people say, I need more balance in my life, so I need to set boundaries. And often when people want to set boundaries, what they mean is they're like, I want these people or this job to treat me this way. And if we could control other people, that would be super. But we can't control other people. Don't try. Not a good thing. Doesn't work. What boundaries are actually about, they're about making decisions for ourselves. So one example is one awesome person in this program used to always say, I just need to set boundaries with my ex-husband because he keeps changing the child agreement care time slots on me. And I have to set boundaries. And she'd say this and then tell him, I'm setting boundaries. You can't change the dates anymore. And then she'd get really annoyed because he wasn't respecting the boundaries that she set. But here's what was happening. He'd call and say, I need to change the dates. And she'd get mad because she had told him the boundaries were not to. And then she'd have to change her schedule because his schedule changed. She wasn't setting the boundaries. And then when she realized this, the next time he called and was like, oh, I need to change the schedule, she just said, oh, yeah, no, I can't do that. So you're going to have to figure something out. And it wasn't about being mean or stronger or like yelling or being empowered. It was about making that really clear decision for herself about her own personal boundaries. And he had to figure it out. And then things started to change, right? Very often figuring out what it is or what it is about balance that you're looking at, what isn't working, we use a little expression called flip the pancake. And that just means Try and look at every side of something. If you're kind of being stubborn and going, but he's not doing this, or I can't find balance, how else could you look about it? Look at it. Here's the word I like to use. Not a big shock because I use the alignment framework, but back to this word alignment. And that makes things about the bigger picture, right? Those big questions. So, in terms of balance, what might that look like? Well, if you've answered of how you want to live, you want to be the best parent you can be, and you have a week where your kid needs you more than anything else, maybe work's going to fall behind a little bit. And that's okay because you're still living in alignment with the life you want to create. Yeah, it's not ideal. You might have to catch up with work, but shit happens. It's never going to be perfect. By that same token, some weeks work might be on fire and you might have so much to do and it might be amazing from a work perspective, but your family might be a little like, hi, like we're here. That happens. Are you living in alignment with who you want to be, how you want to live, and what kind of a world you want to live in? And it's never going to be some perfect scale where everything is weighted equally. We're just not built that way. So those 3 questions, I'm just putting them in your brain right now in a bigger way because they matter. I want you to actually just think of one thing. What's one answer for this you have that you know? How about this one? What's something you can tell me about how you want to live? And the third one, what kind of a world do you want to live in? Just starting with one thing about those 3. Back to things that get in our way, the trying to try loop. Have you ever caught yourself saying, oh, I didn't do it now. I meant to do it. I'd planned. I just wasn't motivated. Okay, I'm going to try again, but this time I'm going to try harder. Okay, no, this time I mean it. This time I'm really going to do it. For real. Okay, I'm going to do it. Things on your to-do list or habits you keep meaning to start. So we call this the trying to try loop. And yeah, it doesn't work. Back to motivation, because you can't schedule motivation. It doesn't work that way. How to get out of it? Well, if you've decided you're going to do something and you don't do it, people often say, I know what I need to do. It's just, I need to do it. That means you don't know what you need to do because you don't know what to do to get yourself to do it. So if you've been saying you're going to do it and you're not, don't try harder. Don't try again. Either try something different, change what it is you're trying to do, or change the way you're approaching it. Now, we've been talking about looking at things in a different way, and sometimes just looking at something from a different way makes it accessible and something you can do. But when you say, I'm going to try harder, I'm going to try again, what that means is you're not actually using your critical thinking skills to think about, well, why didn't this work? What do I need to do differently? Right? So a lot of people, you're not finding out what you need to know. Another little flag we see is the word should. It's one of our red flag words. I should means I don't. It's not always a bad thing. The thing about the word should, though, is there's so much judgment in it. And when you're judging yourself negatively, here's the problem. We believe our own thoughts. Very inconvenient. And judging yourself is not going to help. And when we judge ourselves, we're actually using a part of our brain that makes it impossible to see what's possible. So you're going to get stuck in that trying to try loop so hard if you keep saying, oh, I should do this. I should do this. If you're judging yourself negatively for not doing it, because you're not open to, how can I do this differently? What isn't working? What could I go for that might be a little bit different, right? Our thoughts matter so much. And I wish I could talk to you about that for 6 hours in a row because it's such a big deal, but I've promised not to do that. Actually, I didn't promise I could, but I'm suspecting that most of you wouldn't listen. So we will move on. The other thing is sometimes when people say, I should do this, And what I do is I get my clients sometimes to say it back to me with the words I don't. They might say, "Oh, I should be doing this." And when they say, "Oh, I don't do this," sometimes they follow it up with, "Because I've decided not to worry about that for now." And it's like, yes, and that's okay, right? Sometimes you're judging yourself when you really shouldn't be judging yourself. Actually, I'm going to say always don't judge yourself. That's important. That should be one of our laws. Don't be a jerk to yourself. I think it is. If it's not an official law of Kickstartology, it is now. Don't be a jerk to yourself. I know that's also easier said than done sometimes. But here's a way that helps: collecting data. What if instead of going, this didn't work because I have no willpower, I suck, or whatever reason you might be saying about yourself, if you're hard on yourself, which I find so many women are, you're like, I am collecting data. Maybe getting up at 5:30 a.m. to do yoga doesn't work for you because you're only sleeping X number of hours because you're trying to do everything for everyone. Like, whatever is a reason. Maybe you're consistently not doing something you commit to. And if you dive a little deeper, you'll realize you don't really want it. That's something to listen for, because I will tell you with 100% certainty that if you have a goal that you don't actually want, if you have a goal that you think you should have, weak desire translates into weak results almost all of the time. If you don't really want what it is you're going for, you're probably going to get stuck. No, I should do this, but your motivation isn't going to be enough to get you past the habits that you have today, right? And these tools are about hacking your own system. And I've said more than once that denial does not work. Or if I haven't said it more than once, I've thought it. I've told you telepathically. Denial doesn't work. But that also means denial doesn't work in the sense of lying to yourself, for example, about, I really want this goal, if you don't. And I see this sometimes with corporate clients who are like, I really want the next promotion, but maybe they're bored to tears and they think they should want the next promotion because they're feeling not great about themselves at work. And the time it takes to uncover that, it could be a lot faster. Like when you start listening, going, do I really want this? So listen to yourself. Don't always believe your thoughts, but listen to yourself. Yeah, it is a fine balance, not going to lie, but the results are going to be so much faster if you listen to that. I just want to share this with you because the day and age we live in, I've had more than one person talk about social media addiction. So I'm just going to say it out loud now. Nobody ever listened. Let me try speaking again. I just had a really good scroll. Yeah, said no one ever after a social media binge, right? It doesn't feel that good. Just wanted to remind you of that. Here's another little thing we see. And I'm not even being particularly irreverent here. This global pandemic entitlement. And I'm not diminishing the fact that the global pandemic's a really big thing. It's changed a lot of people's lives, big ways, small ways. There's a lot going on. I recognize that. However, I've been coaching people through the entire thing. And there's this little thing going on that nobody's talking about. And the global pandemic has been the best excuse ever. And I caught myself doing this. I was doing a class and I hadn't done my homework. And we had our teacher for this class is so sweet. She's so nice. And she said, did everybody get a chance to do the homework? And I said, no, I was really busy this week and, global pandemic stuff. And she was just like, yeah, I know. I understand. Like, it's a lot. And when it came out of my mouth, like I actually meant it because I had a really busy week. I'd had to pivot a whole lot of things because of what's going on in the world. But then I took a second and I realized, wait a second, I'm full of shit. I think I watched 4 episodes of a Netflix TV show yesterday. Like, bullshit. I could have done it in this instance, but nobody's ever like, really? Global pandemic? That's why you didn't do your homework, right? So I also caught it for myself because I'm like, it's so hard to do yoga because I don't like doing it online. I miss even the walk of going there. So it's hard to get up in the morning and do it. And I listened to myself and I was believing my own thoughts about how hard it is. And when I did a little bit of data collection, I realized I just don't like it. But if I was committed to doing the yoga and decided to make it a priority, I would do it. There's no insurmountable obstacle that means I cannot do yoga and it's impossible. And people have lived with much worse things than having to do yoga online. And I caught myself, I was being a drama queen about it. And doesn't mean that once I realized that, oh, easy, now I'm going to do it all the time perfectly. But when I listened to that, I realized that that was the obstacle I had to get past. So now I'm working on reframing my thoughts of just doing it because I was getting a little bit creaky. So I had to start focusing on that as a priority, right? So back to your goals, though. Back to your life. You signed up for today because you want to change something in your life. Something is not satisfying to you. And maybe you've tried before. Maybe this is the first time that you're really going to go for it. So what are you going to do? What's your plan going forward? Do you know what you're going to do? Well, I'm going to invite you to go forward. By the way, that's Nadine. You didn't meet her today. She's a delight. And she's a Kickstartology coaching co-leader. I do coaching. She does events and a whole lot of other things. But back to your goals. What if you took 100% responsibility for your outcomes? What if you made a decision right now that you want your life to look different, that you want to change things on that list you wrote at the beginning, and you want your life to look different 6 months from now? Okay, here's your first step. I want you to download the worksheets. The link is below. Download those worksheets. Now, if you're someone, this is very important, if you're someone who has bought a self-help book or had one given to them in their life, and you haven't followed through on the advice in the self-help book, or maybe you didn't finish the entire self-help book, or maybe even you didn't read or start reading the self-help book. Okay, you know what? That was me in the past. I did that. Great title, read the back, enthusiastic, didn't do it. But, and sometimes I read half of it. And even the book, if the book was so logical, smart, motivated me, got me so excited about following through with it, and I was motivated, I would never follow through consistently and stick to it. There's never a long-term impact. And if this is you, I want you to know you're not lazy. You're not unmotivated. Most people don't follow through on self-help books, actually. It's not because you're unmotivated or because you're lazy. It's because you don't have time. It's because changing the way we do things, it's actually a really complicated process. And it's rarely linear. And on top of it all, a huge part of it is starting to figure out where your blind spots are. It's pretty hard to do that consistently on your own. And that's why coaching is such a powerful tool. And if this is you and this is resonating at all, I want you to take the next step and book a conversation with me right now. That question or that link is right below to book a conversation with me. And we'll have a conversation about what it is in your life that you want to change. We'll have a conversation about what your current obstacles are. And we're going to explore how we would approach this through the coaching lens. If you're a procrastinator, Just get that done with right now because you signed up today because you want to change your life. It's time to follow through for yourself. Thanks for coming today. It's great chatting with you. And I really look forward to talking to you about how we're going to change your life together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Great.
It was okay?
Yes.
It was better than okay.
It was awesome.
Agreed.
Can you hear
Good.
us?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Awesome. Yeah.
I'm just trying to decide whether to believe you or not.
Why wouldn't you believe us? We have no reason to blow smoke up your ass. One of
point.
us would have told you to do it again if you. I mean, you're welcome to do a second one if you want, but
not
that
right now.
clocked in around 40 minutes, I think.
Cool. Yeah. Or 30. Yeah. Around 40, just under. So not bad. Pauses. Natural enough swing. They'll pause, write things.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if that got a good sense of it and enough that you think, so maybe I'll send it to somebody as a check to see, hey, how does this make you feel?
Yeah.
But if you think it's good enough, let's get it up there and do the buttons. And at least we have somewhere to send people who show up on our site.
Agree.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, let me stop recording.